financial company, you're doing insider trading, there's all kinds of flags that come up to say, wait a minute, there's something going on. How did they know the share price was going to go up? That's when you start looking at these numbers, you start to go, these aberrations can be really telling. And you can't explain it away from just simple personnel moves or hitting philosophy strategies. So that certainly would be concerning to me right away.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And, I took a beating from Astros fans on Twitter and in the comments on this story because they all pointed out, look at how we changed our team. They did change half their lineup, right? And they brought in guys who made much more contact than the guys they replaced. I understand that. They also got more aggressive in attacking balls in the strike zone earlier in counts. I also get that. But if that's the explanation, then I want you to explain this next stat to me. They cut their strikeouts at home by 242 strikeouts in 1 year. That means they reduced their strikeouts per game at home by 3 strikeouts a game. There's never been anything like that in the live ball era. And I'm sure if we went back farther, we'd find there's never been like that anywhere ever. And just so you know, they struck out way more on the road than at home. They cut their road strikeouts by half that amount, 123. So 242 fewer strikeouts at home, but 123 fewer on the road. Doug, what would you conclude from that?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is this, to the Astros fans beating up on you or beating up, like the evidence is in, okay? We're not still debating whether this happened, right? And so here's the solution to not taking the criticism or turning every stone under, going under every stone is to not cheat, right? That's the solution. And yes, is it somewhat unfair that if you have one, transgression or major transgression that it sort of blankets your whole culture? Maybe that's not quite fair, but it's the consequence of the action. That's just reality. Like we all, fine. If you rob a bank, people are going to look into your parking tickets. I'm just saying, like, this is the reality. And so the evidence, we're looking at these numbers through the lens of actually having information that makes it clear that this actually did occur. So, and that it was an advantage. Otherwise, why the heck would you do it, right? There's an advantage. There clearly was an advantage. And I'm sorry, like, I wasn't the most disciplined hitter in the world. So sometimes me knowing what's coming, I may still chase some bad pitches. I was a bad ball hitter, so I could kind of get away with it sometimes. But if I knew what was happening, that's an advantage, period. Like, I don't care. You know what's coming. There's a lot. I played with 1 million guys in the minor league system that could hit fastballs. And if they knew Joe Sarsha, are you out there? Joe Sarsha, are you out there? Big lefty, A-ball in Geneva, dead fastball hitter. If he knew what was coming and it was just a fastball, that's career changing. I'm sorry. That's just flat. So these numbers, yes, you could debate them, and I understand there may be some things you could say it can't explain all of it, but the choice was made, and it brings everything you did as an organization into question, and I think that's reasonable. Okay, I'm done now.
Yeah, that story you just told is a. You are done? You're not done.
No,
because I have
go
another question.
No. Yeah, go. Yeah.
that story. Okay, let it all out. Go ahead. Do what you need to do. You're ready. You ready for the last question? Okay.
Yes.
All right. That was actually a really good segue to this question because we did look at chase rates. I mean, the key to hitting is not just swing at more strikes and lay off balls that aren't strikes, but do damage on those balls that you do swing at in the strike zone. And like, we have a bunch of really fascinating numbers that show how much better they were at both those things in the piece. But like, one of the things we did was we tried to break off, for example, when somebody threw the Astros a breaking ball that was below the strike zone, what happened? We looked at 2016. We looked at 2017. They were so much better at laying off those pitches. Here's an example. 2016, Marwin Gonzalez chased 40% of those pitches, breaking balls below the strike zone. What percentage do you think he swung at in 2017? 1 year later, he went from 40% chase rate to 10%. Now, I know that players get better from year to year, but is there a plausible explanation for why a guy would get that much better?
No, there isn't. And look, if you go back, just go through all the media in history, and I always got interested when someone says, I worked out this off season the hardest I've ever worked out. I'm in the best shape of my life. Okay, that's a red flag to me. This whole best shape of my life, that's what we're getting now, just not in PEDs, but in this arena. Like, I worked on my eyes and I went through a guru with 3D vision and I could see through walls, and that's how I came back and laid off, all these curveballs. Like, come on, dude. Like, everybody's good at the major league level. Everybody is good. Everybody is good. And that's why an advantage, like I said, when I wrote in the article in the Times, like, a small advantage is a exponential advantage, a small adjustment that you make. Let me rephrase it. A small adjustment that you make like this leads to huge advantages in the realm of the elite. All right. So when you're already in the stratosphere of talent, everybody's good. And one little thing is, it may be 2%. You may know 3% more. That's enough to put you in the World Series. That's enough to make you a multimillionaire. That's enough to make you an all-star. That's how little the difference is. And you know what? Like Bonds and all these players, all the stories we hear about, well, he didn't use PEDs before this date. And it doesn't matter. Like, that's exactly the problem. You taint and you absolutely smear everything you've ever done. And that's why your credibility should matter enough, because one transgression, one mistake can destroy a reputation. Sorry, that's how it goes. And it's not always fair. It's not always fair. And you could work your way back to that, but that's the choice. That's why today we're still talking about PEDs in the game. For all these clowns that made that choice, even players who played clean are just blanketed in this whole thing. So yes, I don't trust it. And I think it's not shocking, but the data, use those analytics that we've gained in this game to look for aberrations like this, because those numbers are really shocking and they seem absolutely unreal and impossible to be able to accomplish in 1 year. It just seems absolutely ludicrous. And the fact that we have the data now to back it up only just highlights that even more.
Okay, friends, Doug Glanville has spoken. And before we move on, I just want to say this to all the people who think I'm some kind of Astros hater, or that those of us at the Athletic are Astros haters. I'm being honest about this. There is no team that I've enjoyed watching play more over these last few years than the Houston Astros. I thought these were great players. And I just hope that this year that they go out and use the opportunity they have to prove that what they accomplished over the last 3 years was because of their greatness, not because they stole signs, not because they banged on trash cans, not because they cheated, but because they are great players and a great team. Nothing would make me happier than if that's what we're talking about a year from now. But we'll find out, right? All right, Doug, time for this week's listener question. And we love the listener questions because that's how we allow you, our listeners, to be part of this podcast. I'll tell you how you can do that in a moment. But the idea of the question is you submit a trivia question. Our mayor, our evil mayor of Starkville, Cam, will pick the question. He'll decide, here's a question that'll stump Jayson, it'll stump Doug, and then it'll give us something to kick around afterwards. So we're ready with this week's question. And once again, we've had a series of questions that have come from some of the great statistical minds you find out there on Twitter. That must be our audience, Doug. We got another one this week. Comes from Paul Moringer, who writes really interesting baseball stuff for the Hardball Times, and you can find him on Twitter at PMOEHRINGER. Now, Doug, Here comes his question. Tough one. He says, which active player has the most career All-Star appearances without starting an All-Star game? Active player, most career All-Star appearances, but never started the game. This is really, really, really tough. I'm just going to throw out a wild guess with Joey Votto. You have an idea?
That's a good one. Is this a trick question? Because what about pitchers? Is that, you know what I'm saying? Are they throwing a curveball at us here? Literally.
Possibly.
All right. Because it's like, yeah, I'm gonna try to see if they're trying to trick us here. Can you think of any pitchers that have made the All-Star team? Like Barry. Wait, all right. So closers. Who's
I've
the
already
closers?
given my answer.
Okay, all right. Give me some closers. Who's some great closers that've been around a long time? Pitched to
Craig Kimbrell, Kenley Jansen.
Yeah.
That'd be right at the top of my list. Fernando Rodney. He's been around a long time. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, because they've made the All-Star appearance.
Just guess.
All right.
Just guess. Come on.
All right, Craig Kimbrell. I'll say Kimbrell. Yeah. Some reliever like that.
Like Doug's thinking outside the box. He's thinking way different than me. Let's get our mayor in here to tell us how we got this one wrong. What do you think?
Doug, I love where your head's at. Unfortunately, it's not a reliever. However, it is a starting pitcher. That starting pitcher being Clayton Kershaw, who has made 8 All-Star appearances without starting in a game.
Well, that's amazing.
I was thinking Kershaw, and I just did not. Okay. Yep. Good stuff. Yeah. All right. I gotta feel like I knew they were up to something sneaky.
That is sneaky. I didn't know that the pitchers were included when I made my Joey Votto guess. Good, Doug. You thought it through beautifully. You just screwed up the name. That's all.
Yeah, it's a name.
All right. So part of the deal is now we have a trivia question. We have to figure out some topic that is inspired by the trivia question. So how about this, Doug? Do you think Clayton Kershaw is still a true ace? He's great. He's a future Hall of Famer, but is he a true ace? I'm going to say Clayton has slipped just a little bit out of that conversation. I only think that there's maybe a half dozen true aces. DeGrom, Garrett Cole, Verlander, Scherzer. I'm elevating Steven Strasburg now after October, and I think this year's newest member of the True Ace Club is going to be Walker Buehler. So that would be my 6. What about you? Am I wrong about those guys? Any of them?
No, those are great. Those are great names, and they're game changers. You put the ball in their hands and just go as long as you can. You saw what Cole did all year. So yeah, it seems like a dying breed, but there's still enough out there that people who go deep into ball games still have a lot of value. It just saves your pen. You could set up things differently. So, I mean, like a guy like Jack Flaherty, I don't know if you mentioned him. I know it's new, but what a year he had. I mean, just after Cole, there's nobody who got hotter than Flaherty, right? So that's a good name. I don't know. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I need to pull up the standings.
Yeah, I mean, he and Mike. I would say he and Mike Clevinger might be next on my list, right?
Yeah, like a Kluber kind of guy.
Step.
Kluber.
I mean, after last year, you can't call Corey Kluber a true ace.
Yeah. I mean, no more, but he was in that ilk. He's just injuries, got banged up. I'm just kind of let me look at the standings, see if I'm missing someone here. We said Scherzer, you said Strasburg. What about Jacob DeGrom?
I'm sure included him. I think Noah Syndergaard always flirts with that with his stuff.
Totally. Totally flirts with it. Bumgarner, he's getting older, I guess, but he's
not quite a true ace.
Maybe
right
not that
now.
guy. That's
right, but it's a fun question, right?
Yeah, I love it. Good question.
We don't have to answer it definitively, but it's fun to talk about. And all you have to do if you would like to get us to read your name on our podcast, get one of your questions wrong, and then talk about how brilliant you are, is just submit a trivia question. And you can do it two different ways. You can send us an email